The MCAT Cars Podcast, session number 33. The Cars section of the MCAT gives thousands of pre-meds nightmares every night. Whether you're an ESL student, lack confidence while reading, or a slow reader like me, Jack Westin and the medical school headquarters are here to help you score higher in every section so you can be confident you're ready to get the MCAT score of your dreams. Welcome to the MCAT Cars Podcast. My name is Dr. Ryan Gray, and as always, I'm joined by Jack Westin, the premier MCAT Cars tutor on planet Earth. That's a bold statement, I know, but I get to talk to him every week here on the podcast, and he has taught me so much on how to break down these articles. And I hear from students like yourself all the time who take his course and come back much stronger with their CARS score and their whole MCAT. Unfortunately, if you are listening to this when this podcast comes out, the MCAT CARS course has just closed for Jack Westin, but go to medicalschoolhq.net/Jack Westin and find out when his next course starts. Every time Jack has a course, they sell out, so you want to jump on as soon as possible. And using the link medicalschoolhq.net/Jack Westin will help you save $100 on that course as well. You can also save $100 by texting the word CARS coupon to 44222. It's all one word, CARS coupon. We have another great article in store for you today, so let's go ahead and jump in and start that now. Jack Westin back for some more MCAT Cars podcast. How you doing today?
I'm good. How are you, Ryan?
I'm excited to jump back in, to get back to me reading and you coaching me on how to read better, comprehend better. So what do we have in store for us today?
It's a very straightforward passage. Thought we'd maybe take a break from the more difficult ones today. This one is pretty straightforward. It talks about something that we're all aware of. And it brings up, maybe some reasons as to why things happen the way they do. That's MCAT. They like to bring up a point and describe why that point exists, right? Or what's happening with that point. So this is all MCAT Cars, really.
I like it. And I like the topic because I am a week now without any sweets. And I mentioned that. Yeah. You'll see what this topic is all about. If you want to follow along, the link to this article is in the podcast show notes on whatever device you are listening to this on. All right, first paragraph here. Removing sweets and crisps from supermarket checkouts could dramatically cut the amount of unhealthy snacks bought to eat on the go, say researchers. All right, short and sweet first paragraph here. This is a Guardian article. So when you hear crisps, I think that's British for potato chips, like just chips,
right?
So yeah, that may confuse some people right off the bat, but that's that. So I think the author here is paraphrasing what researchers are saying about cutting down unhealthy snacks, and if we remove them from the checkout line, then people won't buy them potentially.
Yeah, I mean, it's a claim, right? Yeah. It's an argument because maybe it has nothing to do with the checkout line. Maybe they'll still buy them even if you did remove them from the checkout line, right? So we don't know for sure. I mean, unless they bring in some data or some kind of evidence, this is all just a claim, a point that they're trying to make, right? I mean, what do you think about this? Like, do you believe that removing them from, the checkout aisle, when you're waiting in line somewhere, do you think that actually does lower the chance of someone buying these sweets and crisps?
Knowing my addictive self, I have been very prone to just like, oh, that looks good, right? While I'm waiting, if I'm not staring at my phone for 2 seconds, I'll definitely throw something up on that belt.
Yeah, the reason why I ask is not because the answer really matters, but it's because you're actually engaging with what the author is saying, right? And that allows you to understand it a lot better. Whereas some students just want to read it and just memorize it. You want to actually kind of interact with what you're reading. Instead of being a passive reader, you want to be an active reader. You want to be aware of what's going on and and question whether or not you agree or disagree with whatever is happening, whatever they're discussing. That's when you know you're reading properly. Far too many times I see students read, but they're not really reading. They're more concerned about whether or not they're reading quickly enough, or whether or not, the room is at the right temperature, or if there's enough noise or not enough noise in the room, right? So these things are distractions, right? And our focus should be entirely on what the author is really telling us.
Yeah, too many students are just trying to get through the words without actually understanding.
That's it, yeah.
Yeah, and I think there's a trap here with this first paragraph and sentence, because this is researchers saying this, and I think that a lot of students will go, oh, this is what the author is saying.
Yeah, you gotta be careful. Yeah. Who knows? Maybe the author will go against this.
Yeah.
And go, you know what? It's not a big deal. We don't know, but I mean, usually if they bring up someone's point of view, it's a point of view they probably agree with, but that's not always the case. They may challenge that later on with some kind of contrast word and go, oh, but, so-and-so actually says this. Right. And then a lot of students always ask, well, which point do the author cares about? Like, if they present both points, which one am I responsible for? Usually the point that is discussed more often, or the one that is supported by more evidence or more people or whatever, that's the point the author usually cares more about. So that's a trend.
All right. Next paragraph. Under pressure to act because of rising childhood obesity, some supermarkets have moved snacks away from the till, where people queuing, often the children, are tempted to put them in the shopping basket as they wait their turn. And some more British words, queuing and till. But so just, again, painting that picture of what I was talking about, right? You're sitting there waiting to go to take your turn to check out, and you're like, ooh, that Reese's bar looks really yummy, and they'll throw them in the basket. So the supermarkets, because of the childhood obesity, rising childhood obesity, are thinking about moving the snacks to prevent that.
Right. It brings up this picture, like you said, right? This context. Oh, I can just imagine a kid in line, like begging his parents for like a Kit Kat bar, right? That would be me, like getting that Kit Kat bar. But in this case, it's also bringing up that point about just childhood obesity, how it's a problem. So they're trying to do something about it. So they bring up both claims in one sentence, really, and that's great to be aware of.
Yep. Next paragraph here. Research shows the positioning of products at the checkout or on the end of aisles increases their sales. So again, talking about research and how where the food is can affect if we buy it or not.
Sure.
The findings suggest that many families who stop adding sweets and crisps at the counter appear not to buy them at all. So again, going to research to potentially support the move away from putting them at checkout is that the families aren't buying them if they're not there.
Yeah, and if they are there, they're going to buy them, right? So good, okay.
All right, next paragraph. The government-funded study published in the journal PLOS Medicine found that 76% fewer annual purchases of sugary confectionery and crisps were bought and eaten on the go from supermarkets that do not stock them at checkouts than at those that do. Wow, so pretty powerful study here showing 76% fewer annual purchases. So just showing the impact of moving the chips and sweets.
Yeah, this is an example. This is evidence to support the author's point of view, right? Now, again, this may not be true, and you should not take this as a fact just because one research study showed this or proposed this, right? But this is how the author's trying to convince you that we shouldn't have sugars and chips or whatever at our aisles, right? At our checkout aisles. So it's something that they'll do often. They'll bring up points to make their own claim, to strengthen their claim, but you should never take it as a fact, right? You should always remember that this is just the author bringing up this evidence to present their point of view.
So I have a question, just based on what we've read, right? First paragraph is a point that researchers say The second paragraph doesn't really talk about research. The third paragraph is about research. The fourth paragraph is about research. Has the author really given us a point of view other than framing everything around the research?
Why else would the author bring this up?
I don't know, because I'm just like, I think about the MCAT. I'm like, all right, I'm ready for like the whammy here, where the author all of a sudden goes, in contrast to these studies, I believe blah blah blah. Right?
It could happen. That's why I always tell my students, be prepared for anything. Right? Don't fall in love with what you're reading, because the author could change any minute, any second. Right? And so you just have to be aware that maybe, this is happening, and maybe something else might happen that goes against this.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times students just drink the Kool-Aid, right? They just go with it and go, okay, well, this has got to be this way, and they'll have their own bias come in. No, you got to just be aware of what you're reading, be aware of what the author's saying, and be willing to change your opinion, or be willing to look at this in a new way, comprehend this in a different way, depending on how the author presents it.
I see a student who is very anti-government oversight, anti-regulation, going, oh, this is just too much, right? Just if people want to buy sugar, let them buy sugar. And they're thinking this the whole time while reading it, and then not really absorbing it.
Right. And they're bringing their bias in when they answer the questions. And that's the problem. So it takes a very unique, I would say, very unique kind of mindset to do well on these passages, because you have to read while paying attention. But just because you're paying attention doesn't mean that you agree with the author, right? I think a lot of times students think that because they're paying attention that they are agreeing with them. No, you could challenge what the author's saying, but you have to pay attention, or else you're not going to be able to answer these questions, because these questions are based on what the author's saying. Right? So great point.
Next paragraph. The study used commercially held data from 7,500 shoppers who recorded food bought and eaten on the go during 2016 through 17 from supermarkets with and without checkout food policies. So it's just kind of showing us the impact of the study, or the power of the study with 7,500 shoppers.
Yeah, trying to make the study more valid. Wow, 7,500 shoppers, right? Okay.
On-the-go purchases are often impulsive and can be the result of children pestering their parents. Yep. As a parent of a 5-year-old, yep, I agree with that. So just showing us where these purchases are coming from.
Exactly. That's what I'm looking for, right? Yeah. Like, why are we purchasing? Why? That's the question that they're answering here. So, they're purchasing because it's impulsive. They're purchasing because their kids bother them about it, right? Or pester them about it. So something to keep in mind. That's the picture. That's the context. And a lot of times students, I see this all the time, especially with my daily passages. We'll ask a question and someone will go, oh, wow, that is so far-fetched. Why is that the right answer? Because they are implying something, right? And you have to be kind of aware of that assumption. You have to be visualizing the context, the way the author describes the picture, the scene, and we, the MCAT may ask questions about the way the author presents this information. So it might not be directly in the passage, but you need to picture yourself seeing, kids bothering their parents, kind of, impulsively buying something, etc.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can see a question about like how to reduce the purchases of these, and one of the answers being like, don't bring your kids to the supermarket. And somebody like, well, why would that affect it? Well, if you didn't really understand that it's the kids that are pestering the parents, then the parents aren't going to buy them.
Yeah, and that answer choice is terrible given what the passage is saying. It doesn't say anything about not bringing your kids, but that might be the best answer. Yep. Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Next paragraph. The researchers from Cambridge, Stirling, and Newcastle universities also looked at how purchases of less healthy, common checkout foods that were brought home rather than eaten on the go changed after the implementation of checkout policies. So just kind of, it looks like setting us up for some different data of what happened here.
Yeah, another researcher, another experiment or whatever going on. Okay.
They used data from more than 30,000 UK households from 12 months before to 12 months after implementation. So again, the power of the study here, the validity of it, 30,000 households, and then before the policies and after the policies. All right, next paragraph. They found that removing the unhealthy snacks from the checkout was associated with an immediate 17% reduction in purchases. Okay, so just kind of showing us the power of that policy. After a year, shoppers were still purchasing 15% fewer of the items compared with when no policy was in place. So the author, this last paragraph here, just another part of the study showing us that the lasting effects of these policies of decreasing these unhealthy purchases.
Yeah, that's it. And there's just more evidence, right? Now, a question that I've definitely seen on the MCAT is what explains the percentage difference between the first study and the second study, right? The first study says 76% fewer, and the second study says 15% fewer in 1 year, right? And then you have to kind of just pick an answer that kind of answers the question but fits in with the passage, right? And it's not something they ever discussed, but you have to kind of be aware of what they said to be able to pick the right answer.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And it's a very small difference, just kind of looking at it. That first study was eating on the go, and the second study was what's brought home rather than eating on the go.
Right. Yeah. And that would be the right answer, right? Yeah. Something along those lines. Oof. One is about this, or one is about that, or the placement of these items, or whatever.
So again, going to kind of MCAT technique as a student is going through this, should they be highlighting like, okay, study rather than eating on the go? Is that something they should highlight to just bring their attention to the differences in those studies?
No, I don't think you should highlight, because if you start highlighting, you'll highlight everything, right? That's my opinion on highlighting.
Yeah.
I think if you make this mistake once and you learn from it, right? You see, oh, wow. It like I had to actually pay attention to what I was reading. I had to actually paint the picture of what's going on. Then you're less likely to make that mistake. Now, I teach students in the course to first focus on eliminating the bad answers, right? So you don't even need to know this little subtle nuance or difference if you can use other test-taking strategies or abilities to try to get to the right answer. But yeah, being more careful, being aware of what's happening is very important, right? And that can only be developed through practice and patience and just reading a lot.
Yeah, I see potentially like a little mini mental checklist. Like, oh, there's some research here. My research checklist is, what's the research about? And just going through a little mini checklist as you're reading.
Right. And a lot of students always say, okay, well, I can do this, but it takes me forever. How do I do this quickly?
Yeah.
And that's where knowing what to look for, right? First, look for the big point, then understand the context, how that context fits in with the big point. These things will really make a difference when you read.
Yeah. So, Jack, as this episode comes out, you have another MCAT CARS course starting up here in a couple weeks. For a student who may be new to the podcast and maybe new to understanding that you have this other course, remind them what the course is all about and why they should look at signing up.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we focus on critical thinking, right? That's what the course is all about. That's what our company is all about, is improving critical thinking in a world where everyone's just focused on memorizing or looking at things in not necessarily as problem-solving oriented way. So the MCAT, as you may know, is a reading test, and that includes a lot of critical thinking throughout the entire test. CARS is purely critical thinking. So what we have done is created a course that's focused entirely on CARS, right? And strategically approaching CARS efficiently in a timely manner and getting all the questions right. So we show students how to answer questions properly, how to read properly. Now, what we're doing is in this podcast is more focused on reading comprehension, just getting better overall. But the course focuses on trends, certain things to look at, using those points that you find to answer the questions. So it's very different in that regard. But if you like the interactions that we have and the way we talk about things in very simple terms, there's a lot of that in the course. It's a very self-paced oriented course. It really focuses on everything A to Z, all the problems you can possibly see on the test, from weakeners, assumption questions, you name it. We go over everything, like literally like any kind of problem most students have is touched on. And it's very formulaic. It's very step by step. I teach students, first do this, then do that, so that you can eventually get every question right. That's the goal. It's surprising to many students, but if you follow certain formulas, certain ways of looking at things, you're going to start seeing things in a different way, and you're going to start thinking more critically about what you're reading. You can use that for the other sections of the exam as well, and that's something we also discuss. We talk about the other sections and how to apply this to those sections.
I had a student recently, the way that you're talking about just thinking through the exam and thinking through the questions and stuff. I had a student recently who I think got like a 506 the first time he took the MCAT, and he really took like 9 months to understand the MCAT and understand how it's written and how the answers are laid out.
Yeah.
He took it again, got a 522.
Happens all the time.
Yeah.
Happens all the time. And that's the thing. We do the work for you, right? We've breaking it down so that you don't have to spend 9 months. You spend a month, right? And that's why this is not a one day, one session course. It's a program, right? It's a commitment. You have to really focus on the techniques that we're describing in the course, really work on reading properly, answering questions properly. It takes a lot of discipline, and the students who put in the work are very satisfied with their results. Now, we don't make any guarantees, right? It just depends on the student and how hard they're willing to work, but we make it very obvious what you should do.
Do they get any access to you?
Yeah. I mean, I have live sessions every week, right? Where you can access me and my team, to go through homework passages in live oriented ways, just like how we do it together, where you can ask questions. I think it's a great way to learn, especially in a class setting, because you get to see how other students think and what kind of mistakes they make, what kind of things they do right. So you can start doing that as well. I find that to be the best way to expose yourself to the MCAT style of reading. Keep in mind that everything we do is based on the AAMC. We don't like using any other resource if we can. So we use the CARS question packs. You can also use the practice exams. Everything I teach is based on that material. Like over 10 years of teaching that material, you start seeing patterns. And that's what we do in the course. I show you those patterns. Like, okay, this is the way they trick you. Be aware of that, right? They like to put in these answer choices because they know you're gonna, get stuck on these words. So that's kind of what we do, and we show you that over and over again, and then eventually it'll just click. And when it clicks, it's crazy how significant or impactful this course can be to your score.
All right, there you have it. Another great article battling obesity. We're talking about obesity. I hope you got a lot of useful information out of our episode today. Take these tactics, take these tips, go back, listen to the podcast while you're reading the articles, follow along with me, follow along with Jack, and improve your score. Again, go to medicalschoolhq.net/Jack Westin to save $100 off and find out when the next course is offered. You can text also CARS coupon to 44222. Have a great week. We'll see you next time here on the MCAT CARS podcast.